Mella, lovely cushioned header, but Gerrard! Oh, you beauty! What a head, son! What a head!
Yes, guys, welcome back to Onto the Ball. I'm your host, Scott, and I'm joined, as always, for Liverpool podcast by James O.B. O'Brien. It's been a hot minute since we've done a stream, OB. I checked the archives. It was April when we got beat 3-0 by Atalanta. We've not been on since then. Our season obviously fell apart. We were dealing with the absolute turmoil and heartbreak of Jurgen Klopp leaving the club. We were talking in the group chat pretty much all summer about what we're going to be like as a team, as a club. Losing Jurgen Klopp, a generational absolute legend. Obviously the predictions were far and wide. Of one end of the spectrum, I said we're going to go back to the Roy Hodgson days of 2010. We're going to fall off a cliff. We're going to be bottom half of the table. You were a little bit pessimistic with me, not as bad as me, but saying, yeah, I expect to drop off. In our Liverpool group chat, Chris Dunn was saying, I'm quietly optimistic. Let's see what the new guy can do. And Lee just went on full tilt saying, we're going to win the league. Constantly kept writing in the group chat, we're going to win the league. We're going to win the league. The Reds have got no money. We're going to win the league. And here we are. ARNE slot has come in, and it couldn't have gone better. Let's be real. That Nottingham Forest home result aside, it couldn't have gone better so far.
No, 100%. And it's not what we expected. You said that as well. And it's surprising the way it's just almost fell into place. I think Slot has took what we had with Klopp and not tried to rock the boat, but a couple of little tweaks. And I think it's tweaks that he's done within the team. We are playing a slightly slower pace build-up. He's moved Gravenberch into that role that he just seems to work brilliantly in. His first touch is tremendous and it helps him so much. His energy's great. He's even started playing about with people like Luis Diaz as a centre forward, etc. And he's even, I would say, getting a tune out of Nunes, who I'm not a huge fan of.
I don't think anyone is, are they?
Performances from him, and it's like he's just got us playing the right way, and he was very quick in the first game to sort of go, well, look, Konate needs to come back into the team. And he hooked Wanza at half-time in the first game. And that kind of set the tone, I feel. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, everything's going right for him. And we'll touch on it, I'm sure. But obviously, he only signed Chiesa, who's only played about half an hour of football. We didn't sign anyone else, did we?
No.
I was racking my brains today. We haven't literally spent 10 million on Chiesa. So it's still Jurgen Klopp's squad. But obviously, the contract situations that are going on with Trent Arnold, Salah, and Van Dijk, Slot has not got it easy. I mean, let's be real. He's going to have an element of wanting to kiss their asses to keep them happy, to get them to sign new deals. But at the same time, he's got to be authoritative. He's got to let them know that he's the manager. He's running the team. He's running the squad. And he's not shied away from that either. Taking off Salah on the odd game, taking off Trent Arnold on a couple of games, especially earlier in the season. Kind of shying away from these big decisions. And he's doing it his way. And so far, he hasn't put a foot wrong, has he?
No, absolutely. And he's kind of separated himself from them negotiations by saying, I'm the head coach. This is my role as head coach. I don't get involved in the contract negotiations, which is probably a very good strategy because it's kept him separate from the whole negotiation piece, which is obviously going on within the club and with them individuals, agents and managers, and with probably very little interaction from the actual players themselves other than get me the best possible deal. It is interesting because the club haven't really come out and committed to any one of them. And I'm wondering if it's going to be a case of we'll probably get 2 out of 3, but we don't know what 2. Depends how them individual negotiations goes. But from a Slot perspective, he's almost sitting separate to that going, I'll just worry about what happens on the pitch. I brought in Chiesa because it was a punt to nothing, a 10 million quid punt to nothing. Didn't overly matter in as much as if you get a player out of it, great. If you don't, the type of business they're in, they can recoup 10 million really, really easily. So I just think it's a very, very astute way of going about it. Didn't know an awful lot about the guy. Thought he'd struggle simply because he'd never managed a club of that magnitude. But it almost looks like they've chopped his job up a little bit from what Klopp used to be more involved with certain things off the pitch. And he's almost gone, I'll deal with everything on the pitch. Chop the job up in the right way. Let the club do what they do. But the only problem I see down the line is if a club don't support him in the right way, that might end up being another.
I think your mic just dropped out there, Obi.
Am I back?
You're back now. I mean, let's just take it back to January of this year when Klopp announced that he was leaving. You know, a lot of well, in our Liverpool group chat, we're saying, look, it's the right thing for the club. He's let us know early so they can do the due diligence on the next guy. It did seem to us, well, it's obviously going to fall apart because the players are not playing for Klopp anymore. Obviously, none more so than that spat with Salah on the sidelines away at West Ham. You just thought, how could it go any other way? And the season kind of fell apart. But on the other hand, if he hadn't have said that and he'd come out on the last day of the season saying, I'm leaving, we still might not have won the league or anything else. And then we might have missed out on someone like ARNE Slot, who, let's be real, Chelsea are always looking for managers. Man United might have been looking for managers. We might have missed out. So it might have been a short-term loss. Hopefully so far, touch wood, not getting excited yet, but a long-term gain in that sense. But yeah, I mean, Jurgen Klopp, we had many discussions about it. You know, him saying that I was running out of energy, and I was scathing of FSG saying it's them that have drained him of energy. He's basically saying I can't turn water into wine any longer, any more than 9 years. We overspent last summer, so Klopp kind of knew there's no money to spend with our 100 million plus outlay on the 4 midfielders. So I think Klopp was just ending up saying, look, I know we've got no money to spend for the next year or two. We've just had a year out of the Champions League. So, you know, he was exhausted, like I say, trying to turn water into wine. But what it is ended up doing is giving us the time to find what looks so far like the right guy. And it looks a real astute decision from Klopp to do that for us, for the fans, for the club. And I hate to say it, and I never thought I'd say it, but he's a legend, and thanks for everything he's done. But so far, we're not missing him, are we?
No, we're not. But it is very early doors, so there's still a lot of potential for the season to run into a bit of trouble at various points. But so far, so good from Slot. It's interesting because there's a lot of talk on the radio now, and before the start of the season, a lot of people were saying Liverpool will struggle, Slot won't keep up, etc. He just won't be able to keep the levels going. He hasn't got the experience, not used to managing a big club. Now they're saying, well, he inherited a great team.
Yeah, he's had an easy start to the season.
Yeah, and it's a completely change of narrative. And then even in the early games, it was like, wait till we play someone decent. The wheels fell off against Nottingham Forest. That was the narrative. Then it was like, wait till you play someone. Wait till you go to Arsenal. You're going to get battered, and then the season's going to fall apart from there. And none of that's happened. Yeah. And
a nice little away win at Man United, but that's kind of customary these days, isn't it? A bit routine.
That's not really a big deal, is it?
Not anymore.
No.
But yeah, I mean, ARNE Slot, obviously, when you look at, I was actually looking at the squad today. I've seen one of these things on Facebook, one of the fan groups, try to name the team against Southampton, and it had 2 players in every position. And do you know who wasn't even in the 22 positions? Joe Gomez. Wow. He wasn't even in there. But I mean, let's be real. Slot has got every player playing to the top of their ability and on form at the minute. When you think of the likes of Kelleher coming in, I want to give a mention to Tsimikas at left back. He might even be the first choice left back right now. You think of the transformation of Gravenberch. You think of the front 5 that are playing at the minute. I mean, Diogo Jota was probably the first name on the team sheet. That's a bit harsh on Salah, really, but he started the season on fire. He got injured, as we always knew he was gonna, but he's got a tune out of Diaz, who's playing. He looks like he's entering his peak years. Gakpo is pretty much cemented on the left now, which means he's had to put Diaz in the centre, and then Salah is just rolling back the years. He's looking fresher. He's getting better, not older, isn't he? He needs to sign that contract.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other one in the middle that has been a kind of surprise, because we thought he was always a talented lad, but he never really got in, was Jones, who seems to have come in and started against Chelsea, start starring for England, forced himself in the England squad, got a start, looked like the best player on the park away to Greece, and that's just astonishing that someone can come in and have that amount of confidence. That's obviously come from the support mechanism behind him within the club. The lad's always had talent. We always knew that from that moment he pinged that ball in the top corner when we put out a young team against Everton that time in the FA Cup. We known he had talent. He's a bit stop-start. He's had a few injuries, and then he's just gone from strength to strength. It's really interesting though, because I think some of these players that we've always thought he's got something about them, like Simicast, like Gravenberch, like Jones, they seem to be the ones that are really benefiting from Slott's approach to the game. And I'm wondering if he's picked up on certain things. I'd also include in that Trent as a defender now looks a lot more solid. And I saw an interview where Trent was talking about how to defend and how to approach defending and the body position. And he says it's not really something that I spent a lot of time being taught. So it looks like there's a lot more of a technical angle behind the way Slott's approaching it, which is obviously having impact on, I would say, them four players, maybe Kanate as well, more than anybody else. A lot of them other players, I mean, the likes of Van Dijk, the likes of Salah, they've been sitting on like quality for years. They know what to do. But now we're starting to see the players who are on the periphery starting to really make a name for themselves and push themselves into contention, first 11. And that's the real challenge, that we're getting to the point now where I don't know what the first 11 is going to be. And how many times could we say that under Klopp? We always kind of knew. We always had a feeling who we put into the big games. We always had a feeling we knew the way he'd approach a game. With Slot, I think the system pretty much remains the same. However, the personnel looks to be based on who's training well, who's impressive on the training part, and who he thinks is ready. He's ready to unleash against certain teams, and look to expose some of the weaknesses of the other teams, which is it's a different approach. Klopp was very much, we'll play our way and you'll have to adjust to us. I get the feeling that it's the opposite way around with Slot, that he's modifying his teams, modifying his players to suit certain games. He's looking for people to win individual battles. He talks about that a lot. Like, got to be first to the ball. You know what I mean? Win that ball. We've got to be like really on it from a pressing, making sure we're winning, making sure we're working as a team. And you can tell that in what he's talking about, and you can see it start to manifest itself on the pitch, which is different and probably fresh for the players, which is obviously going to be positive because we're seeing good output so far. It is early days, but it's refreshing, it's positive, and it's very deliberate as well.
I think that the word you just used there was refreshing. I think that was another thing that we've touched on when we speak in the Liverpool group chat, is that I think the dressing room needed that freshening up. They probably got a little bit tired of Klopp's same message, in a team and a club that doesn't spend £700-800 million every 4 years at Arsenal, Man United, that it's largely the same squad, bar tweaks here and there. So of course the message will probably get a little bit stale. And you can tell, like when Arne Slot speaks in the conferences and the post-match interviews, he's got that about him. He doesn't get carried away with the wins. He doesn't get down with the losses. He's realistic. He's relatable, and that must come across in the dressing room because like you say, everyone seems to be singing off the same hymn sheet, and that is so important. I'll always remember one of Ten Hag's first interviews, and people thought my mate Trav thought I was just being Liverpool biased, but he come across like he was waffling. I watched the whole interview and I sent a message in the group. Like, I didn't understand a word he said. He's waffling. What must that come across like in the changing rooms? And that was one of Klopp's biggest strengths, is his ability to communicate and say the right things at the right time in the right situations. You thought it must come across well in the dressing room, and Arne Slot has got that in his locker.
I absolutely agree with you. I think it's really important. I'd also say that Arne Slot comes across like he hasn't he's confident in what he does, but he hasn't particularly got a massive ego. Whereas you always felt Klopp's ego.
There's zero arrogance, is there?
Yeah. And there's nothing there. It's very factual. And it's almost like he's the perfect foil for what we needed. And someone in the
post-Klopp
identified that. And
yeah.
Them. Because I wouldn't have had that sort of character. I didn't think that's what we needed. I thought we needed someone big, strong, or someone with a real pedigree. But
and then isn't it weird, OB, that when Man United, obviously Fergie left, probably David Moyes' biggest mistake, and he admitted it, I watched it on the overlap the other day, was he tried to change too much. If anything, Arne Slot's come in, like we've alluded to, and he's not made wholesale changes. He's kept pretty much the team, the formation the same to see what have you got, what have I inherited sort of thing before making himself look a dick and changing things.
I think that's really important, though, isn't it? To just sit back and assess, and maybe even tell the team, look, this is a fresh start. I'm going to give you the technical knowledge that I've got, and how you embrace that and take that onto the training ground and take that into matches is going to define you as a player. And it's almost like going, the emphasis isn't on me, it's on you as players to develop your career. You've all got the ability. What do you want to do now? Almost that type of approach. I do think that some of the stuff in the later years with Klopp, and now reflecting on it, the stuff outside of the actual team and being on the pitch has possibly made him tireder, and maybe Slot's identified that from the start and very much played that. I'm the head coach. I look after the first team. I'll go and watch in the 21s. I'll go and watch the kids play. But I'll very much be looking at how I adapt that team and take a very pragmatic approach to a lot of players who've got a lot of ability and give them that technical know-how, and then go, right, okay, I want you to apply it and watch how that gets applied.
Yeah, definitely. I loved that line about 3 or 4 games ago when they were saying, it couldn't have been a better start. It's like the perfect start. And he didn't get carried away being like, oh, yeah, it's going great. He was just like, no, perfect would have been beating Nottingham Forest. So it's far from perfect. And you think that's exactly what you want to hear. So you might have won 92% of the games, but that one you can tell is still irking him. And it still irks us fans, doesn't it? We were mentioning it the other day. Like, as good as this season has gone, I keep looking at that home game against Nottingham Forest thinking, if only. And it's these tiny margins that we've got to be ironing out. And it's obviously down to him to iron it out. But it still hurts me now.
Yeah, but even then, I think we learned a lot from that point, and it grounded the team a little bit. So maybe we'll look back at the end of the season and see it as a positive, in as much as they didn't get carried away, simply because that kind of grounded them. It made them think, right, okay, we need to go back to doing the basics. I thought they were poor in that game, and Slot, I imagine, spent a lot of time with a video, going through it with individuals, going, this isn't what I've asked you to do. And you know what you need to do, and talk back to me what you're going to do and how you're going to manage that in the future. And I think that's really important. The other interesting thing is there's a couple of players, and they never really talk about it, have kind of gone the other way. And I don't know whether that's because of attitude or whatever, but they don't seem to have come along on the Slot train. And one of them, Szoboszlai, I mean, I've noticed that I don't know if he doesn't fancy him, but he's certainly not using him as much, and that might be simply because of the rise of Jones. However, Kwanzaa as well is another one who's kind of slipped down the pecking order, and it's about how these guys respond, and that'll be interesting to see, particularly with them two players over the coming weeks. I would say Nunez responded quite well to not being in the team quite often. Once again, not his biggest fan, and you know that, Scott. I'll keep saying that. I mean,
I'm not Szoboszlai's biggest fan either. I just don't think he's good enough, Obi.
No.
I think he's getting found out in the Premier League, unfortunately, which is weird because he's a big powerhouse and he's fast. He looks tailor-made for the Premier League, but yeah, that's it's not gone unnoticed. Szoboszlai's probably not even in the strongest 11 right now, is he? With Jones playing the way he is.
No, he's not there, and it's really interesting because somebody I was talking to the other day compared him a bit to Emre Can, in as much as he's a good player, but the actual delivery on big games in the centre midfield, you don't always see that much from him. And I know actually Chan came on quite a bit towards the end of his career and was played out of position quite a lot, particularly by Brendan Rodgers when he was in a back three at one point, if you remember
he ended up centre back, didn't he, away to Man United?
So, yeah, it's a little bit harsh on Chan, who's then gone on to the last season. He was in the European Cup final, wasn't he? So
yeah,
and captain in one of the teams. So I mean, it's interesting because it does look like there's a couple of players that he probably doesn't fancy quite so much. We are starting to see them slip out of the team, and it'll be interesting to see if there's any movers and shakers in January. And then again, going into next summer with these 3 big contracts, obviously coming to a head at some point.
Well, let's get straight on to these big 3 contracts, Obi. There's no point in asking you what you would like to happen. I think we all want the same thing. So what do you think is going to happen? And you got to obviously bring the financials into it. If they all want in 350k a week, and forget how long they want, Salah will probably be looking for 2 years. Virgil maybe 2 or 3. Trent, you're looking to tie him down for life, 5 years plus. So forget the length of it. It's all on that weekly wage. They're all going to want around 350k a week. I mean, that's $1 million a week, just over, on 3 players. When we've got, so that's 52 million a year. Our wage bill is 350 million a year. So just for 3 players, I ain't done the maths. 50 million divided by 350 can't be far off. 17% of the wage bill would just be on these 3 players. I was watching Red Men TV, a podcast the other day, and they were talking about the danger of a player falling off a cliff. A bit like Fabinho was the one they quoted. It would be just our luck if we signed Salah and Virgil van Dijk to 2 or 3 year deals and then they fall off a cliff towards the end of the season. Personally, I just cannot see it happening at all. But also, what do you think Slot's input on these negotiations are? Do you think they're minimal? I mean, obviously you'll say, I want them. They're quality players that are in my plans for the next 2 or 3 years. Of course they are. They're world class. But how much of a role do you think he'll be playing in it?
I imagine that it was part of the conversation when he agreed to join the club, because everybody knew they were coming into last year of a deal. What is interesting is we're sitting in November the 21st today, and there's still no indication about what's happening. The worry is that we'll lose probably the one who's got the most market value in Trent to Real Madrid. I think the other 2 is purely about improving or keeping the team at the level and keeping the team as best it could be, because the other 2 are probably more irreplaceable than Trent. However, from market value perspective, so financially, to hold Trent down, probably, I don't know if it makes the most sense. The other 2 make less sense because at the end of that contract, they're going to be worth nothing. So are we willing to take that risk on both of them? I think we are. And I think we should.
I think it's all down to money, Obi. I think that potentially even saying we can only afford 2 out of the 3, what are we going to do, sort of thing.
Yeah, but from a financial perspective, Scott, if you sell Trent, well, you can start talking to other clubs in January, can't you?
Yeah.
And that's the danger. So do you sell him for whatever you can get for him? He's got to be signing another deal. He's got to.
No one will be leaving in January for a fee.
No.
I've seen a few reports and I look at it and I scoff. There's not a chance. Trent's run his contract down for a reason. No, he's either upset. Yeah. He's either upset like Steve McManaman was way back in the day. It's a bit of a legendary story now, or it might be a myth that reserve goalkeeper Brad Friedel was on more than Steve McManaman. There was no offer of a new contract for a year or 2. And he thought, well, I'll show you. And he left for free. I can't imagine that Trent, or he might have seen Salah's deal for the last 2 years and thinking I should be on that kind of money. And I don't even know what he's on now. What do you reckon? About 100k, 120k a week?
I imagine he's probably on more than that.
But and he might have been thinking, where's my offer of close to 350 a week 12 months ago or 18 months ago? But obviously we know his big mate Jude Bellingham is at Real Madrid. It'll be a move of a lifetime, let's be real. But at the same time, his family are all Scouse. He's born and bred Liverpool, been at the club for 20 years. If he did want to go, we could still sell him. Why? It's almost like, why is he doing this to us? Sign the contract and we'll sell you to Real Madrid for 100 million next summer.
And it might be that maybe the club have spoken to Slot and said, which one of these do you think you can't do without in the next 2-3 years? And he might have come back and maybe said, I can do without. one of them. I don't know. Or he's more replaceable. In a scale of 1 to 3, who's the most replaceable? So who could you get in to replace Salah? I don't think you can.
Nope.
Actually, don't think you can.
Virgil the same, and then you look at Connor Bradley coming through.
Yeah,
he's such a talent. He's Northern Ireland captain already, isn't he? Scoring goals for his country. He's done fantastic for Liverpool every time. And it is a little bit like I think you're about to allude to. How much can you influence a game from right back? Yeah, it is a bit of a position where you think it probably is easier to replace, to cover, to find a solution.
It is. The only thing is that he's the only one out of the 3 is still in his peak. The other 2 are probably slightly over the hill. However, we haven't seen any drop off from Salah. Just to be absolutely clear, he's modified.
I think he might be getting better, Obi.
Yeah, we've probably seen a little bit less pace from Van Dijk, but the experience, because we've seen people like Thiago Silva and Hummels and people like that go deep into their careers in their mid-late 30s, and there's no real. They can still do it because they're clever enough. I think Virgil's got that ability as well. So for me, you alluded to at the start, we'll keep all 3. However, it'll be interesting.
Do you think?
I don't know. I don't think you're worried about the money, aren't you? You don't think they'll pay the wages for 3 of them?
No, I don't think we can afford it. I don't think we can afford 350k a week. I just don't think we can afford it.
So do you
even though, I mean,
we've been 2?
I think they probably stretched to 2. When you think like we're still saving wages on Firmino, Milner was on a good wage. He was like 135k a week. All these players that have left, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Naby Keita, there's lots of money there. And don't forget, we're making a good money off selling our youth players. When you think of Bobby Clark went for 10 million, all these things into the mix. We only spent 10 million in the summer on Chiesa.
So if you had to pick 2, Scott, which 2 would you keep and why?
I'm not sure if it's because deep down I've resigned to losing Trent, or if I just think the other 2 are irreplaceable. But yeah, Trent is the one that would have to miss out purely for what we just said in the last 5 minutes. Salah is irreplaceable. He seems to be getting more important to the team rather than showing any signs of fading away. He's getting more integral to everything that we're about. And Virgil is just Virgil. Carragher mentioned it a month or 2 ago. He doesn't even need pace. He reads the game so well. He never looks stressed. He never looks in danger. He snuffs out everything. He's just a fantastic football player. One of the best ever. Probably the best centre-back ever in this league. Obviously, we're Liverpool. We're going to say that, but I'm not hearing this Rio Ferdinand. I'm not hearing John Terry, Virgil van Dijk. For what he brings to a team, to a squad, he's right up there. It's just a shame that he come into this like world-class status at like 26, 27-year-old. Fair enough, John Terry and Rio Ferdinand done it at a younger age, but he's incredible. So yeah, if I had a gun to my head, Trent would be the one that I'd have to sacrifice, if that's what we're calling it. But also, do you think there's an element of all 3 of them are looking at each other and not signing to see what the other one's doing? I mean, if someone signs, let's say Virgil signs for 300k, thinks it's a good screw, and then Salah signs for 500k, I'm not saying we'd ever give that kind of money, but I think there's a bit of cat and mouse going on as well.
No, I agree.
Whether their agents are talking to each other or not, which I hope they're not, but they probably are.
I'd also say as well that I imagine Salah's agent and Salah's team are probably saying things like, well, the Saudi League are looking at Mohamed Salah, the marketability of the probably the most important and the highest profile Muslim player in the world. The quality's there, so you bring quality into the league, as we know. So that's certainly a factor, in as much as I think Salah's probably got the best bargaining tool of the Saudi, and we all know the Saudis are interested. I mean, Trent's got Real Madrid interest, but is that real, or is that development of, do they really want to play him there, or do they have better right backs, or do they have someone who they think would fit into the system better? Not sure. And then Virgil, I mean, if Virgil goes, where does he go?
Yeah, 33, he's still at the top of his game. Literally, where do you go? Do you go to like a bit of a dead league in Italy? Do you go to Spain? Would they want him in Spain? Is his game suited in Spain? Would he be adored in Spain like he is the Premier League? Yeah, it is a little bit. Or does he go to Saudi? He's too good to go to Saudi. And so is Salah. Salah is going to go Saudi. We all know it. But it's probably going to be when he's 36, 37. He's going to be still playing when he's 38, 39, like Ronaldo. I'm pretty sure of it. The way he looks after himself, he conditions his body. He's just a supreme athlete. Yeah,
it's even down to the point of, did you hear he was talking in an interview, and I saw it the other day, and I don't know if it's a new one or an old one. He was talking about what he's learned from the players around him. He was with Robbo, and he said that the one thing that Robbo had taught him was he actually said to him after he missed a chance, he looked sad. He says,
seen it.
You bring the whole team down. He says, if you look sad because you're that influential. He says, but if you smile, it makes us all think he's okay. He's going to do it again. He's going to do whatever he needs to do, and he'll turn it around. And that is influence beyond just your ability. That's influence of the players around him know he's the most important player in that football team. That doesn't happen.
It was class, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of Robertson, let's end on Robertson. Lots of podcasts, lots of fans are writing him off. He scored the winner for Scotland midweek. I'm not writing him off. It's been refreshing seeing Simicast do as well as he has when he's come in. But Robertson, he's not finished yet, surely. I know the Klopp full metal football and all that heavy metal football allegedly takes it out of players, i.e. Fabinho. It's always the one that we point to, but Robertson's still got legs, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Robertson will put more effort in if he thinks that anybody is questioning him. So I think we'll just see a response. Wouldn't surprise me if he scores some big goals in the coming weeks. Look out for that, and I think we'll see a
couple of assists he'd take at the minute, wouldn't he? A couple of good assists would liven Robertson up. And let's be honest, he's not the first player to get ripped a new arsehole by Saka, so it's nothing to get too down about. Although he did, he was awful against Arsenal.
He just wasn't right, was he?
No, he wasn't. You could tell he wasn't right. I felt sorry for him. We all thought he'd get hooked at half time, didn't we? Yeah. But hopefully he comes back stronger. He's had a little rest now. OB, it's been a pleasure. ARNE slot, keep it up. We're going to win the league. Are we?
It's early days. Let's see.
In fact, I'll tell you what. There's one thing I want to make just before we go off. There's comparisons of this league of us in 1920. Games played, won. I think at this point, instead of that loss against Forest, we'd had another win. So it was 10 wins, 1 draw. That 1 draw was at Old Trafford. And then also, I've got a little feeling there's a comparisons of when Leicester won the league as well. Because it's odd that City are struggling and Arsenal are struggling. Our two main rivals, should you say. Man United are nowhere. Spurs are struggling. It's like every team's struggling except for us.
I'm hearing a lot of people moaning about FFP restricting teams, but don't you think it's also made the league a lot more competitive? And the teams who are starting to show up are not the teams who have just gone out and blew. We've talked about it a lot. Teams that go and spend 200, 300 million every transfer window, they haven't been able to do that. Liverpool have done it on a couple of occasions, but we haven't done it too often. But they've built over time, and they've got longevity because they've developed players within the team as well, developed younger players. So I think it's made for a really interesting league. We're both in a last man standing, and you actually run it, don't you, Scott? And it's so hard to predict games. You're looking down and you're thinking, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. Not sure about that one. And then
Man City's not safe anymore, is it?
Yeah, it's hard. It's a lot harder than it used to be.
Definitely. We're here for it. Right. If anyone's made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe. Me and Obi are going to be back for lots more Liverpool content in the coming days and weeks. Obi, it's been a pleasure.
Cheers.
See you on the next one.
Cheers, mate.
Mella, lovely cushioned header. But Gerrard! Oh, you beauty! What a head, son!